The sky above Solace 7 had always been beautiful. Soft purple clouds moved slowly across a pale orange horizon. The three moons hung like jewels in the evening light. For the Velari people, this world was paradise. They had lived here for 600 years in peace. But today, the sky was full of nightmares. Muva stood at the communication station, her thin fingers shaking as she pressed buttons. She was young for a liaison officer, barely 30 cycles old. Her large silver eyes reflected the horror on the screens around her. Dark shapes filled the sky. Hundreds of them. Thousands. The hollow had come. "Signal sent again," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Coalition frequency 7. Emergency code red. Please respond." The speakers gave back only static. Elder Pren stood behind her, watching the screens with ancient eyes. He was the leader of this colony, responsible for 3 million Velari souls. His body was tall and thin, like all his people. Bones light as bird wings. Skin the color of morning frost. The Velari had evolved on a gentle world with low gravity and no predators. They were builders, farmers, artists. They were not fighters. "Try the Korath again," Pren said softly. Muva switched channels. The Korath supremacy had signed a protection treaty with the Velari 40 years ago. They had promised to defend Solace 7 against any threat. They had taken payment in rare minerals and agricultural products. They had given their word. "Korath Military Command, this is Solace 7, Muva spoke into the transmitter. "We are under attack. Hollow invasion force, requesting immediate assistance. Please respond." Nothing, only the empty hiss of space. Through the windows, they could see the first landing pods falling from the sky. They looked like black seeds dropping from dead flowers. Each pod carried dozens of hollow drones. Soon, those drones would spread across the surface, hunting, killing, harvesting. The hollow did not conquer worlds for territory. They did not want resources or power. They wanted bodies, living bodies. They used other species as hosts for their young. It was a fate worse than death. "Where are they?" Muva asked, tears forming in her eyes. "We had a treaty, they promised." Pren put a gentle hand on her shoulder. He had no answer. In his long life, he had learned that promises between the stars meant very little. The strong did what they wanted. The weak suffered what they must. "Evacuate the cities," he ordered the others in the room. "Send everyone to the deep caves. We will hide as long as we can." The next few hours were chaos. Velari families fled their homes, carrying children and whatever they could hold. The underground caves were ancient, carved by water millions of years ago. They were deep and dark and cold, but they were better than facing the hollow above. Muva stayed at her station. She sent message after message. She tried every coalition frequency. She contacted the Merchant Guild, the Science Collective, the Unity Council. Everyone had excuses. The hollow were too dangerous. Solace 7 was too far away. Resources were limited. They were very sorry. No one was coming. By the third day, the hollow controlled the surface. Their organic ships sat on the ruins of Velari cities like bloated insects. Hunting parties moved through the streets, searching for survivors. In the caves, 3 million Velari huddled in darkness, waiting to die. Muva sat alone in a small chamber, still holding her communication device. She had stopped crying. There were no more tears left. She thought about her family, hiding somewhere deeper in the caves. She thought about the children who would never see sunlight again. Then she did something desperate. She switched to an open channel, not a coalition frequency, not a protected band, just an open broadcast reaching out into the void, hoping anyone would hear. "This is Solace 7, she said, her voice hollow. "We are dying. Our allies have abandoned us. If anyone can hear this, please help us. We have nothing to offer. We have no weapons, no military, no power. We are just people who want to live. Please, someone, anyone, help us." She sent the message and let the device fall from her hands. It was useless. No one outside the coalition would care about a small Velari colony. No one would risk war with the Hollow for strangers. 72 light-years away, a small patrol ship moved through empty space. The vessel was called the Pale Horse. It was not beautiful like coalition ships. It was gray and angular, built for function rather than form. On its hull was painted a simple symbol, a blue planet against black stars, the flag of Earth. Lieutenant Wu sat at the sensor station, bored and tired. Patrol duty was never exciting. His job was to watch for pirates and smugglers along the trade routes, nothing more. He was thinking about dinner when a signal caught his attention. He sat up straight. It was a distress call, open channel, very weak. He cleaned up the transmission and listened. A female voice, alien but translated by the computer. Desperate, afraid, begging for help. Wu felt something twist in his chest. He was a pilot, not a soldier. He had never seen real combat, but he knew that voice. He had heard it in old recordings from Earth's history. It was the voice of someone who had given up hope. He routed the signal to the command deck. Admiral T was reviewing supply reports when the transmission came through. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes. She had commanded ships for 30 years. She had seen war and death and everything in between. She listened to the message twice. Then she pulled up the star charts. Solace 7, Velari Colony, Coalition-protected space, 72 light-years away. Who are the Velari? She asked her first officer. Herbivore species, he answered. Low-gravity origin, no military. They have a protection treaty with the Korath. And where are the Korath? Unknown. No coalition ships within response range. T leaned back in her chair. The Velari were not human allies. Earth was not even part of the coalition. In fact, the coalition had rejected Earth's membership application twice. They called humans Deathworlders. They said humanity was too violent, too dangerous, too unpredictable to join civilized society. The coalition wanted nothing to do with Earth, and Earth owed them nothing in return. But that voice, that desperate, broken voice, it did not belong to an ally or an enemy. It belonged to someone who needed help, and that was enough. Admiral T stood up. She walked to the center of the command deck and activated the fleet-wide channel. 12 ships were under her command. Not a large force, but enough. All vessels, this is Admiral T. Change course immediately. Coordinates being transmitted now. We have received a distress call from a civilian colony under attack. They have asked for help. She paused. She knew what she was about to do would have consequences. The coalition would be angry. Politicians would complain. Reports would be filed. None of that mattered. They called for their allies, T continued. Their allies did not come, so we will go instead. All ships prepare for combat operations. We arrive in 3 days. She closed the channel and turned to Lieutenant Wu, who had followed the signal to the bridge. You found them, she said. Wu nodded, still looking uncertain. Admiral, we have no treaty with the Velari. We have no authority in coalition space. Why are we doing this? Admiral T looked at him with calm, steady eyes. Because they asked for help, Lieutenant. On Earth, that used to mean something. I want it to mean something again. She returned to her chair and watched the stars shift as the fleet changed course. In the darkness of Solace 7's caves, Muva slept against a cold stone wall. She did not know that her message had been heard. She did not know that help was coming. She dreamed of fire and death and the end of everything she loved. She did not dream of the Deathworlders, not yet. But they were coming. The hollow fleet hung in orbit above Solace 7 like a disease spreading across healthy skin. 300 ships, if they could be called ships. They were grown, not built. Organic masses of bone and flesh and dark matter, pulsing with alien life. They had no crews. Each ship was a single organism, connected to the overmind that controlled them all. For 5 days, the Hollow had been harvesting. Drop pods fell to the surface every hour. Hunting drones spread through the cities, the farms, the forests. They found Veleri hiding in basements and attics and holes in the ground. They found them and took them. The captured were brought to the processing ships in orbit. There, in chambers of wet darkness, the Hollow implanted their young into living hosts. The victims would remain alive and aware as the parasites grew inside them. It would take weeks before death finally came. This was the way of the Hollow. They had done it to 100 worlds before. They would do it to 100 more. The Overmind watched through 10,000 eyes, satisfied with the operation. This world was weak. The prey was soft and easy to catch. The Coalition had sent no response. No one was coming to help. Then the sensors screamed. Gravity distortion, massive energy signatures. Something was coming out of faster-than-light travel, many somethings. The Overmind turned its attention to the edge of the system. What it saw made no sense. 12 objects emerged from the void in perfect formation. They were not organic. They were metal and fire and sharp angles. They looked nothing like Coalition vessels, which were elegant and curved like works of art. These things were ugly, brutal. They looked like weapons given physical form. The ships were gray and black, covered in armor plating and gun turrets. Each one bristled with weapons. They did not slow down as they entered the system. They accelerated. The Overmind reached out with its mind, broadcasting on all frequencies. It had dealt with interference before. Some species tried to negotiate for their captured members. Others tried to threaten. None succeeded. Unknown vessels, the Overmind broadcast. You interfere with sanctioned harvesting. Identify yourselves or be consumed. This world belongs to the Hollow. The response came in a language the Overmind did not recognize. The translation systems worked quickly, converting the alien speech. This is Admiral T of the Terran Relief Fleet. You have attacked a civilian population. You have taken prisoners. You will release them now and withdraw from this system. The Overmind processed this information. Terran. The word triggered old memories, stored data from previous encounters. Earth. Sol System. Class 12 Death World. The Coalition had flagged this species as dangerous but primitive. They had no faster-than-light capability until recently. They were not members of any alliance. They were nobody. Terran vessels, the Overmind responded. You have no authority here. This operation is legal under Hollow law. Withdraw or face destruction. You are outnumbered. The math was simple. 300 Hollow ships against 12 Terran vessels. The humans could not possibly win. The Terran Admiral's voice came back, calm and cold. We did not come here to negotiate. All batteries free fire. The Hollow fleet barely had time to react. The Terran ships opened fire with everything they had. Kinetic slugs, each one the size of a ground vehicle, launched from magnetic accelerators. They crossed the distance in seconds and struck the Hollow ships like hammer blows from an angry god. The first 3 Hollow vessels simply exploded. They were not built to withstand this kind of impact. Their organic hulls, strong enough to resist lasers and plasma, shattered like eggs under the kinetic assault. The Overmind screamed orders to its fleet. Attack patterns formed. Hollow ships surged forward, firing acid sprays and biological missiles. But the Terran ships did not stop. They did not slow down. They flew straight into the heart of the Hollow formation, guns blazing in every direction. Their point defense systems shot down incoming missiles before they could strike. Their armor absorbed acid that would have melted Coalition vessels. Lieutenant Wu sat at the controls of the flagship Iron Dawn, his hands steady despite the chaos around him. The ship shook with each impact, but the damage reports showed nothing critical. Earth ships were built for survival. Earth ships were built for war. Enemy vessel on approach vector, the weapons officer called out. Collision course. Wu did not flinch. He adjusted the ship's angle slightly, just enough. The hollow ship screamed past them, so close that sensors flickered. Wu spun the Iron Dawn around and the gunners tore the enemy apart from behind. Admiral T stood at the center of the command deck, watching the battle unfold on the tactical display. She had fought pirates and smugglers before. She had trained for war her entire career. But this was her first real fleet engagement. She felt no fear, only cold focus. "Target their command ships," she ordered. "The larger ones cut off the head." The fleet responded. Terran vessels moved with coordination that the Hollow could not match. Human reaction times were faster. Human tactics were unpredictable. Human ships were tougher. The Overmind watched its fleet dying and felt something it had not experienced in centuries. Confusion, then fear. These creatures were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be weak, but they fought like demons from the darkest myths. They took damage that should have destroyed them and kept fighting. They killed and did not stop. 2 hours into the battle, half the Hollow fleet was debris. The Overmind ordered a retreat to the planet's shadow, hopping to regroup. But the Terran ships followed. They did not pause. They did not hesitate. By the 3rd hour, it was over. The last Hollow vessels burned in the void. The Overmind itself, housed in a massive carrier ship, fled toward the edge of the system, screaming warnings to distant Hollow worlds. The Deathworlders were real. The Deathworlders were coming. Admiral T watched it go. She could have chased it. She could have destroyed it completely. But there were more important things to do. "All ships cease fire," she commanded. "Begin landing operations. We have people to save." On the surface of Solace 7, the Velari had no idea what had happened. They only knew that the Hollow drop pods had stopped falling. The hunting drones had gone silent. Something had changed. Elder Pren stood at the entrance to the deepest cave, surrounded by his people. 3 million souls, hungry and scared and waiting for the end. Then a young scout came running down the tunnels, his eyes wild with shock. "Ships," the scout gasped. "New ships in orbit. They destroyed the Hollow, all of them." Pren felt his heart stop. "Coalition ships, the Korath." The scout shook his head. "No, Elder, different ships, strange design. They are landing now." Muva pushed through the crowd, her communication device clutched in her hands. She had heard. Someone had come, but who? Outside the caves, the first Terran dropships touched down on Velari soil. They were not graceful landings. The ships hit the ground hard, raising clouds of dust. Ramps dropped open. Figures emerged. They were shorter than Velari but much wider. Their bodies were thick with muscle. They wore heavy armor that made them look even larger. They moved with a strange, heavy grace, each step firm and powerful. The Velari who saw them first screamed and ran. Captain Hana stepped onto the alien world and sighed. She had expected this reaction. Humans always scared other species at first. It was the eyes, the forward-facing predator eyes. It was the way humans moved, like hunters stalking prey. It was everything about them. "Hold position," she ordered her Marines. "Let them come to us. We need to show them we are not a threat." She removed her helmet, revealing a face that was hard but not unkind. She had black hair cut short and a scar across her left cheek. She looked up at the purple sky and the distant caves where the Velari were hiding. "We came to help," she said quietly, knowing they could not hear her. "We came because you asked." In orbit, Admiral T transmitted a message to the surface on the same frequency Muva had used days before. "People of Solace 7, this is Admiral T of the Terran Relief Fleet. The Hollow orbital forces have been destroyed. You are safe. We are not your enemies. We heard your call for help. We have come to answer it." Deep in the caves, Muva heard the message through her device. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Someone came," she whispered. "Someone actually came." Elder Pren looked up toward the surface, toward the strange alien ships that had saved them. He did not understand why. He did not know who these Terrans were. The coalition had never mentioned them. But they had come when no one else would. For the first time in days, Pren felt something he had forgotten existed. Hoping. Captain Hana had been on many alien worlds, but Solace 7 felt like walking on a dream. The gravity was less than half of Earth normal. Every step sent her floating slightly upward before she came back down. Without her powered armor to add weight, she would have bounced around like a child on a trampoline. The Velari were still hiding. Her marines had secured a perimeter around the cave entrances, but no one had come out yet. Hana understood. To the Velari, humans must look like monsters. Big, heavy, covered in armor, carrying weapons. Everything about them screamed danger. "Sergeant Jin," she called out, "status report." Jin jogged over, his heavy boots thudding against the soft ground. He was the largest man in the unit, built like a mountain with a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. But Hana knew him well. Behind that scary exterior was a man who cried at sad movies and kept pictures of his niece in his helmet. "Perimeter secure, Captain. No hollow activity in the immediate area, but scouts report enemy forces still active in the eastern sectors. Thousands of drones. They have been retreating since we destroyed the fleet, but they are not gone." Hana nodded. The battle was not over yet. The hollow ground forces were cut off from their ships, but they were still dangerous. And somewhere in that chaos were Velari prisoners, taken during the 5 days of harvesting. "We need to make contact with the local population," Hana said. "They have information we need. Locations of captured civilians, enemy positions, but they are afraid of us." "Can you blame them?" Jin asked, looking down at his armored hands. "I would be afraid of us too." A voice came through their communicators. It was Dr. Su, the fleet's chief medical officer. She had landed with the second wave of dropships and was setting up a field hospital near the cave entrances. "Captain, I have contact with the Velari, sort of." Hana and Jin moved quickly to the medical station. What they found surprised them. Dr. Su was kneeling on the ground, her medical kit open beside her. In front of her sat a small Velari child. He was tiny, even by Velari standards. His silver skin was covered in dirt and scratches. His large eyes stared up at Dr. Su with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "His name is Keth," Su explained softly. "He got separated from the others when they fled. His arm is injured. I am treating him." Hana watched as the doctor worked. Su was a small woman by human standards, but compared to the Velari child, she was a giant. Her hands looked like they could crush him without effort, but she moved with incredible gentleness, cleaning the wound and applying bandages with the skill of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Keth winced but did not pull away. He watched everything with those big silver eyes. "You are strange," Keth said suddenly. The translation software in their helmets converted his words to English. "You look scary, but you are being nice. Why?" Su smiled at him. "Because you are hurt, and when someone is hurt, we help them. That is what we do." "The Hollow hurt us," Keth said, his voice small. "They took my uncle, they took my teacher, they took everyone." Hana felt her chest tighten. She had seen the reports. The Hollow had captured thousands of Velari during their 5 days of control. Those people were still out there, being used as hosts. "We are going to get them back," Hana said, kneeling down to the child's level. "I promise." Keth looked at her. He reached out one thin hand and touched her armored arm, feeling the hard metal. "You are so heavy," he said with wonder. "How do you move?" Jin laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "We are from a heavy world, little one. Everything there tries to pull you down. We got strong to push back." More Velari began emerging from the caves. They came slowly, carefully, keeping their distance. But the sight of little Keth sitting peacefully with the humans seemed to give them courage. Elder Pren came forward, supported by Muva. He was old and tired, but his eyes were clear. He looked at Captain Hana and tried to stand straight despite his exhaustion. "You are the ones who destroyed the Hollow Fleet," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," Hana replied. "I am Captain Hana. This is Sergeant Jin and Dr. Su. We are here to help." "Why?" Pren asked. "We have no treaty with your people. We have never even heard of you. Earth," the message said, "we do not know this world." Hana removed her helmet fully, letting the Velari see her face. She had learned that aliens found helmeted humans even more frightening. Showing your face was a sign of trust. "Your liaison sent a message," Hana explained. "She asked for help. Our admiral heard it. She decided to come." Just like that, Pren seemed unable to believe it. Just like that. Muva stepped forward. "I sent that message as a final hope. I never thought anyone would hear. Your people owe us nothing. Why would you risk your lives for strangers?" Hana thought about the question. On Earth, humans had a complicated history. They had fought endless wars against each other. They had caused terrible suffering. But they had also shown incredible kindness, sometimes to complete strangers. It was both the best and worst thing about humanity. "Because that is who we want to be," Hana said finally. "Because helping others is the right thing to do. And because we know what it feels like to be alone and afraid and waiting for help that never comes." Before anyone could respond, a signal came through the communication channel. It was Lieutenant Wu from orbit. "Captain, we have a problem. Coalition vessel entering the system. Korath Supremacy diplomatic ship. They are demanding to speak with Admiral T." Hana exchanged a look with Jin, the Korath, the allies who had abandoned the Velari. Now they decided to show up. In orbit, Admiral T watched the Coalition ship approach on her display. It was elegant as all Coalition ships were, white and gold, shaped like a flowing wave, beautiful and completely useless in a fight. The transmission came through. A Korath official appeared on screen. He was tall, with blue skin and 4 arms. His expression was cold. "Terran vessel, I am Ambassador Lorek of the Korath Supremacy. You have committed multiple violations of Coalition law, unauthorized military action in protected space, destruction of property, interference with natural order. You will stand down immediately and await judgment." T listened without expression. When the ambassador finished, she spoke calmly. "Ambassador, your supremacy had a protection treaty with the Velari. Where were you when the Hollow attacked?" The ambassador's expression flickered. "That is not relevant to." "It is the only thing that is relevant," T cut him off. 3 million people were being harvested. They called for help. You did not answer. We did. You had no authority, the ambassador snapped. We did not need authority. We needed a conscience. The ambassador's blue skin darkened with anger. "The Coalition will not tolerate this interference. You are primitives from a death world. You do not belong here. You do not understand how things work in civilized space." Admiral T leaned forward. "Let me tell you how things work in our space, Ambassador. When someone asks for help, we answer. When someone threatens innocence, we stop them. When allies break their promises, we remember." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You can join us or stay out of our way. But we are not leaving until every captured Velari is rescued. That is not a negotiation. That is fact." The ambassador stared at her for a long moment. Then he ended the transmission. Captain Hana received the update on the surface. The Korath ship had moved to the edge of the system. It was watching, but it was not interfering. For now. "Marines," Hana announced to her troops. "We have work to do. Hollow forces are still active on this planet. They have prisoners. We are going to get them back." Sergeant Jin checked his weapon and smiled his scary smile. "About time." Dr. Su finished bandaging little Keth's arm. She looked at the child and pointed to the other Velari gathering nearby. "You should go back to your family," she said gently. Keth shook his head. He stood up and walked over to Sergeant Jin, the biggest and scariest human present. He grabbed Jin's armored hand and held on. I want to stay with the nice monster, Keth said firmly. Jin looked down at the tiny creature holding his hand. His stone face cracked into something soft. Captain, he said, I think I have been adopted. Despite everything, Hana laughed. Then she put her helmet back on and prepared to lead her Marines into battle. The Hollow were waiting. The prisoners needed rescue, and the humans were just getting started. The intelligence reports were worse than anyone expected. Captured Hollow drones revealed the truth through chemical extraction. A massive hive ship remained hidden in the shadow of Solace 7's largest moon. Inside that ship were the processing chambers. Inside those chambers were nearly 3,000 Velari captives, still alive, being used as hosts for Hollow young. Admiral T studied the data in silence. Her officers stood around the planning table, waiting for orders. We could destroy the hive ship from here, her weapons officer said quietly. One focused bombardment. The Hollow would lose their command structure. The remaining ground forces would fall apart. And the prisoners? T asked. The officer looked down. Acceptable losses, that is what coalition doctrine would say. T's jaw tightened. Human doctrine has no such category. She turned to the tactical display, examining the hive ship from every angle. It was enormous, nearly 2 kilometers long, a living mountain of flesh and bone and darkness. Getting inside would be almost impossible. Getting out with prisoners would be even harder. But the alternative was leaving 3,000 innocent people to die. Prepare boarding parties, T ordered. We are going in. Lieutenant Wu raised his hand. Admiral, with respect, how do we even get close? The hive ship will have defenses, point defense systems, drone swarms. We cannot just fly up and knock on the door. T almost smiled. We will not be knocking, Lieutenant. You will be flying the insertion craft. I need the best pilot we have. Wu swallowed hard but nodded. He had never imagined he would be flying into the heart of a hollow hive. But if that was what the mission required, he would do it. On the surface, Captain Hana received the orders. She gathered her Marines at the dropship landing zone. Sergeant Jin stood at her side, his wounds from the earlier fighting already bandaged. Volunteers only for this one, Hana announced. We are boarding an enemy hive ship to rescue prisoners. I will not lie to you, some of us might not come back. Every single Marine stepped forward. Hana nodded, not surprised. She had served with these people for years. She knew what they were made of. Dr. Su pushed through the crowd, medical kit on her back. I am coming too. The prisoners will need immediate treatment. Hollow implantation causes severe trauma. Doctor, the combat zone is not the place for. Captain, with respect, those people have been hosts for nearly a week. Without medical intervention, many will die before we can get them back to the fleet. I am coming. Hana looked at the small doctor with her fierce eyes and knew there was no point arguing. Fine, stay close to the squad. Jin, you are personally responsible for her safety. Jin nodded, yes, Captain. Little Keth ran up as the Marines were loading into dropships. He grabbed Jin's hand again, his silver eyes full of worry. You are leaving, Keth said. Where are you going? Jin knelt down, his massive armored form looking almost gentle. We are going to bring back your uncle, and your teacher, and everyone else the bad creatures took. Keth's eyes went wide. Can you really do that? We are going to try very hard. The child thought for a moment. Then he reached up and pressed something into Jin's palm. It was a small stone, smooth and polished. For luck, Keth said. My mother gave it to me. It will keep you safe. Jin closed his fingers around the stone. He had faced death many times in his career. He had never been more determined to survive. I will bring it back to you, he promised. I will bring everyone back. The assault began at midnight ship time. Lieutenant Wu pushed the insertion craft to its limits. He weaved through asteroid debris, using the moon's gravity to mask their approach. Behind him, 2 other craft followed, carrying 40 Marines each. The hive ship detected them when they were 10 kilometers out. Defense nodes activated. Organic turrets began firing streams of acid and living projectiles. The space around them became a storm of death. Wu flew like a man possessed. His hands moved faster than thought, adjusting angles, timing burns, sliding between attacks with centimeters to spare. Human reaction times were measured in milliseconds. Hollow targeting systems were fast, but not fast enough. "Hold on," Wu shouted as he banked hard, spinning the craft to avoid a massive acid stream. The maneuver would have caused a coalition pilot to black out. Wu just gritted his teeth and kept flying. They hit the hive ship at full speed, breaching the outer hull with shaped charges and riding the explosion into the interior. The craft crashed into something wet and organic, grinding to a halt in a corridor of poolsing flesh. "Go, go, go," Hana shouted, leading the charge. The Marines poured out into the nightmare. The inside of a hollow hive ship was nothing like any artificial structure. The walls were alive, covered in veins and muscle. The floor was soft and uneven, making every step uncertain. The air was thick with strange smells that made human stomachs turn. And everywhere there were drones. They came from openings in the walls, from tunnels in the floor, from the darkness itself. Hollow drones were fast and vicious, with sharp limbs and venomous stingers. They attacked in waves, trying to overwhelm through numbers. The Marines formed firing lines and opened up. Plasma rifles painted the corridors with light. Hollow drones burst apart. More came. The Marines kept firing. Sergeant Jin fought at the front, his heavy weapon turning entire swarms into burning wreckage. A drone got close enough to sting him, the venom spine driving through a gap in his armor into his arm. He grunted, pulled the spine out with his bare hand, and kept fighting. "Sergeant," Dr. Su shouted, trying to reach him. "Later," Jin yelled back, firing another burst. "Find the prisoners first." They pushed deeper into the hive. The corridor opened into larger chambers, each one more horrible than the last. They found rooms full of organic pods, each pod containing a captured alien, alive but unmoving, the implantation chambers. And they found the Velari. Nearly 3,000 of them, scattered across dozens of chambers, each one sealed in a pod of living tissue. Many were still conscious, their eyes open, their mouths frozen in silent screams. Dr. Su rushed to the nearest pod and began cutting it open with a medical laser. The Velari inside gasped as fresh air hit their face. "I need help here," Su shouted. "We need to free them all before." A voice filled their minds, not sound, something deeper, something that pushed directly into their thoughts. "You should not have come here, little predators." The overmind. Hana felt the pressure against her consciousness like a physical weight. It was trying to overwhelm them, to break their will, to make them stop. "Everyone feel that?" she asked. "Yes, Captain," Jin gritted out. "Push through it, keep moving, it is just noise." The overmind pressed harder. It had broken countless species this way. Its mental power could crush weaker minds, turning enemies into puppets. It reached into the humans, looking for cracks, looking for weaknesses. What it found surprised it. Human minds were chaos. Emotion and memory and trauma and hope and fear and love all tangled together in ways that made no sense. There was no single thread to grab, no central weakness to exploit. Every time the overmind tried to push, the human minds pushed back with 1,000 different feelings at once. These creatures were not unified, they were fragmented, broken, messy. And somehow that made them stronger. "What are you?" the overmind hissed in their thoughts. Hana smiled grimly. "We are human and we do not break." The Marines reached the core of the hive ship. The overmind's physical form hung there, a massive brain-like cluster surrounded by nerve tendrils that connected to the entire ship. It was ugly and alien and terrifying. Jin planted the explosives while Hana and the others covered him. The Overmind threw everything it had at them. Drones poured in from every direction. Acid dripped from the ceiling. The walls themselves tried to close in. The Marines held the line. They held it because they had to, because 3,000 lives depended on them. "Charges set," Jin shouted. 5 minutes. "Everyone out," Hana commanded. "Grab the prisoners, move." What followed was a nightmare of fighting and running and carrying wounded Velari through tunnels of living horror. Dr. Su worked on the move, stabilizing critical patients while Marines cleared the path ahead. They reached the insertion craft with seconds to spare. Wu was waiting, engines hot. "Get in," he screamed. "It is going to blow." Marines and Velari poured into the craft. Hana counted bodies, making sure no one was left behind. "Jin, where is Jin?" Sergeant Jin emerged from the corridor carrying 2 Velari children in his arms. Behind him, the ship was starting to shake as the charges prepared to detonate. He threw the children into the craft and jumped in after them. "Go, now." Wu launched the craft so hard that everyone slammed against the walls. Behind them, the hive ship exploded in a bloom of fire and organic debris. The Overmind screamed through space, its dying cry echoing in the minds of every psychic creature for light years in every direction. Then silence. In the cramped interior of the insertion craft, humans and Velari lay tangled together, breathing hard, covered in blood and worse. Dr. Su moved between them, treating wounds, checking vital signs. "Prisoner count," Hana gasped. "How many did we save?" Jin checked the numbers. His scarred face split into a genuine smile. 2,847, Captain. We got them all." Hana closed her eyes and let out a breath she felt like she had been holding for days. They had done it. Somewhere in the mess of bodies, a rescued Velari reached out and grabbed Hana's hand. It was Elder Pren's mate, someone the reports had listed as probably dead. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." Hana held her hand and said nothing. There were no words for this moment. They flew back toward the fleet, carrying the survivors toward safety, leaving the burning wreckage of the hive ship behind them. The Deathworlders had kept their promise. 2 weeks had passed since the rescue. Solace 7 was beginning to heal. The Velari emerged from their caves and returned to their cities. The damage was severe. Buildings had been destroyed. Farms had been burned. But the people were alive, and that was what mattered. Human engineers worked alongside Velari builders, helping to construct new shelters. It was strange to see the two species together. The tall, fragile Velari and the short, heavy humans. They could not have been more different, but they found ways to work together, to communicate, to laugh at the same jokes. Dr. Su had transformed a ruined school into a medical center. She spent her days treating survivors, teaching Velari medics, and checking on the thousands who had been rescued from the hive ship. The implantation process left scars, both physical and mental. Recovery would take months, maybe years, but it would come. Little Keth had become a constant presence at the human camp. He followed Sergeant Jin everywhere, asking questions about Earth, about humans, about everything. Jin, the scariest-looking man in the entire fleet, had become a favorite among the Velari children. They climbed on his armor and braided flowers into his hair while he pretended to complain. "You are very strange," Keth told him one afternoon. "You look like a monster, but you act like a mother." Jin laughed so hard he almost cried. Captain Hana spent most of her time coordinating security patrols. The hollow ground forces had been destroyed or scattered, but she wanted to make sure nothing remained to threaten the colony. Her Marines swept through every sector, checking every building, every cave, every shadow. They found survivors in places no one expected. Velari who had hidden so well that even the Hollow could not find them. Families reunited. Children found their parents. It was not always a happy ending, but it was an ending, and sometimes that was enough. Elder Pren recovered slowly from the ordeal. His mate, rescued from the hive ship, was healing beside him. They spent their days watching the humans work, trying to understand these strange creatures who had saved them. They gain nothing from this, Pren said to Muva one evening. We have no resources they need, no technology they want, we cannot even offer military alliance. Why did they come? Muva shook her head. I have asked them many times. They always say the same thing, because we asked for help, because it was the right thing to do. No species behaves like that. There must be something else. But there was not. The humans asked for nothing. They expected nothing. They simply helped because help was needed. It broke everything Pren thought he knew about the galaxy. A week after the rescue, the Coalition responded. A formal summons arrived for Admiral T. She was ordered to appear before the High Council to answer for her unauthorized actions. The Koreth ambassador had filed 17 separate complaints. The bureaucratic machinery of galactic civilization demanded its pound of flesh. T accepted the summons. She would appear via holographic transmission from the Iron Dawn. She had no intention of leaving her fleet. The council chamber was impressive, even as a hologram. Representatives from 50 species sat in a vast circular hall, looking down at her projection with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. The Koreth ambassador spoke first. Admiral T of Earth, you have violated Coalition space. You have destroyed property. You have interfered with sovereign matters. What do you say in your defense? T stood straight, hands clasped behind her back. I have no defense. I did exactly what I intended to do. Murmurs spread through the chamber. You admit to these violations? Another representative asked. I admit to saving 3 million lives, T replied calmly. I admit to rescuing nearly 3,000 prisoners from a fate worse than death. I admit to destroying an enemy force that your coalition refused to address. If those are violations, then yes, I am guilty. The Koreth ambassador slammed his 4 hands on his desk. You had no authority. The Velari are our protectorate. You had no treaty, no permission, no right. T met his eyes through the hologram. You had a treaty, you had permission, you had every right, and you did nothing. While your protectorate was being harvested, you sat in comfort and sent automated responses. You let them die because helping them was inconvenient. You do not understand how the coalition works, another representative said. There are procedures, committees, resource allocation priorities. We cannot respond to every. They called for help, T interrupted, her voice cutting through the chamber. They called for their allies. Their allies did not come, so we came instead. She paused, letting her words echo. You labeled our world a death world. You called us monsters, too violent, too dangerous, too unpredictable, and you were right. We are all of those things. We evolved on a planet that spent 4 billion years trying to kill us. We learned to fight. We learned to survive. We learned something else too. We learned to protect each other. We learned that strength without compassion is meaningless. The chamber was silent. The Velari were not our allies. They were not our trading partners. They were not our responsibility. They were just people who needed help. That was enough. That will always be enough. T straightened her shoulders. You want us to apologize? No. You want us to submit to your authority? Never. You want us to promise this will not happen again. I cannot do that. Because the next time someone calls for help and you refuse to answer, we will answer instead. Every single time. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. We are not here to join your coalition. We are here to remind the galaxy that when the powerful ignore the weak, the monsters from Earth will respond. Remember that. She ended the transmission. The coalition did not punish Earth. They could not. Politically, the humans had done nothing wrong by their own laws, and practically, trying to sanction a death world species that had just destroyed a hollow fleet seemed unwise. The matter was quietly dropped. But the galaxy remembered. On Solace 7, Elder Pren made an announcement. The Velari colony would withdraw from the Coalition's protection treaty with the Korath. Instead, they would seek an independent relationship with Earth. They came when no one else would, Pren explained to his people. They asked for nothing in return. I would rather trust monsters with honor than allies without it. Other species noticed. Small worlds on the margins of Coalition space, forgotten colonies, neglected populations. They began sending quiet messages toward Earth, not requests for help, not yet, just contact, just conversation, just the beginning of something new. On the last day before the fleet departed, Admiral T came down to the surface for the first time. She walked through the streets of the Velari capital, surrounded by the people she had saved. They did not fear her anymore. Children ran up to touch her uniform. Adults bowed their heads in respect. Elder Pren met her at the central plaza. He was still frail, still recovering, but his eyes were clear and strong. "Admiral," he said, "I must ask you one more time. Why, you truly gain nothing from this. Why did you come?" T looked around at the rebuilt city, at the living people, at the children playing in the street. She thought about Earth. She thought about humanity's long, bloody history. She thought about all the times humans had failed to help each other, and all the times they had succeeded. "We gained something," she said finally. "We gained the knowledge that we could do this, that we could be better than our worst instincts, that we could use our strength to protect instead of destroy." She looked at Pren directly. "You did not need to offer us anything. You just needed help. That is what humans do. That is what we want to be known for, not as monsters, not as Deathworlders, but as the people who answer when someone calls." Pren was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took T's hand in his own thin fingers. "Then perhaps," he said softly, "the galaxy has been wrong about your species. Perhaps you are not monsters at all." T smiled. "Oh, we are definitely monsters, but we get to choose what kind." The fleet departed that evening. Velari gathered by the thousands to watch the human ships rise into the sky. Little Keth stood with his reunited family, waving at the lights until they disappeared among the stars. Sergeant Jin had returned his lucky stone. He had added something to it, a small metal earth charm pressed into the smooth surface. "For luck," he had told Keth, "so you remember." In orbit, Admiral T stood at the observation deck of the Iron Dawn, watching Solace 7 shrink behind them. Lieutenant Wu joined her. "Where do we go now, Admiral?" he asked. T thought about the messages that had been arriving, the small voices from the edges of the galaxy, the forgotten and the abandoned. "Wherever we are needed," she said. "There will always be someone who needs help. There will always be someone calling." She turned away from the window. "And we will always answer." The Terran fleet moved into the darkness between stars, toward the next crisis, the next call, the next chance to be something more than monsters. Behind them, the Velari looked up at their empty sky with new hope. The Deathworlders were out there. The Deathworlders remembered. And for the forgotten and the weak and the desperate, that made all the difference. The galaxy had called them monsters. Perhaps they were right. But sometimes, the monster is exactly what you need.